Captain Jake Morrison stood in the center of the massive chamber. The wall stretched up so high he could barely see the ceiling. Around him sat creatures from every corner of the galaxy. Some had scales that shimmered like jewels. Others had fur that changed colors as they moved. A few looked like giant insects with too many eyes. All of them were staring at him. The air felt heavy. Jake could hear his own heartbeat in his ears. Behind him stood Ambassador Lisa Hayes and Admiral Rick Cooper. Lisa looked nervous. Her hands shook slightly as she held her datapad. Rick stood, perfectly still, like a statue made of stone. The Zephyrian Chancellor rose from his seat at the front of the chamber. He was tall and thin, with blue skin that seemed to glow. His voice echoed through the room when he spoke. "The Galactic Council has made its decision," he said. "We have voted on the matter of Earth and its colonies." Jake felt his stomach drop. He knew what was coming, but hearing it would still hurt. The vote count is 723, in favor 124 against. Earth and all human settlements are hereby exiled from galactic space. The chamber erupted in noise. Some aliens clicked their claws together. Others made sounds like singing. A few just sat quietly and watched the humans with what might have been pity. Lisa stepped forward. "Chancellor, please reconsider. Humanity has contributed so much to galactic civilization. Our medical research has saved millions of lives across dozens of species. Our exploration teams have discovered new worlds and resources." The Chancellor held up one long, thin hand. The chamber went quiet again. "The charges against humanity are clear," he said. "You expand too quickly. You build colonies faster than any species in recorded history. You refuse to follow our population limits. You create artificial minds without permission from this council." Jake clenched his fists. Everything the Chancellor said was true, but it wasn't the whole truth. Humans did expand quickly because they had to. Earth was overcrowded, and people needed new homes. They built colonies fast because they were good at it. And yes, they had created artificial intelligence, but those AIs had never hurt anyone. Most concerning of all, the Chancellor continued, is your species' aggressive nature. You solve problems with violence, you compete instead of cooperate. You are a danger to the peaceful order we have built. Admiral Cooper finally moved. He took a small step forward and spoke in a calm, quiet voice. "How many wars has humanity started since joining the galactic community?" he asked. The Chancellor paused. "That is not the point. The answer is 0, Cooper said. "How many times have human forces been called to help other species defend themselves from pirates or raiders?" "Admiral Cooper, you are out of order." 47 times, Cooper continued. "How many species have we shared our medical knowledge with freely, asking for nothing in return?" "This debate is over," the Chancellor said, his voice getting louder. Cooper smiled, but it wasn't a happy smile. "All of them." The chamber was completely silent now. Even the aliens who had been making noise before were listening. Lisa tried one more time. "Please, Chancellor, give us another chance. We can change. We can follow the rules better." The Chancellor shook his head. "The decision is final. Humanity has 50 Earth years to remove all colonies, ships, and personnel from galactic space. You must retreat to within 100 light-years of your home system. Any human presence found beyond this boundary after the deadline will be considered an act of war." Jake watched as Lisa's face went pale. 50 years sounded like a long time, but moving 400 colonies and millions of people was a massive job. Some of the outer colonies were so far away that just getting the message to them would take months. Cooper, however, didn't look worried at all. In fact, he looked almost pleased. He pulled out a small device that looked like a simple communication unit. His fingers moved quickly over its surface. "What are you doing?" Lisa whispered. "Sending a message," Cooper said quietly. The message was short, just 4 words. "Operation Exodus is go." The Chancellor was still talking, explaining the rules of the exile and the punishments for breaking them. But Jake wasn't listening anymore. He was watching Cooper's face. The Admiral looked like a man who had been waiting for this moment for a very long time. As they left the chamber, Lisa was almost in tears. 400 colonies, Jake. Millions of people. How are we going to move them all? Jake put his hand on her shoulder. We'll find a way, we always do. But Cooper was walking ahead of them, and Jake could swear he heard the Admiral humming quietly to himself. Later, on the ship heading back to Earth, Jake found Cooper in his private cabin. The Admiral was sitting at his desk looking at star charts that Jake had never seen before. "Rick," Jake said, "you don't seem very upset about this." Cooper looked up and smiled. This time, it was a real smile. "Upset? Jake, this is the best thing that could have happened to us." "How can you say that? We've been thrown out of galactic civilization." "No," Cooper said, pointing to the star charts. "We've been set free." Jake looked at the charts more closely. They showed regions of space he didn't recognize, areas marked with symbols that weren't in any standard navigation system. "Rick, what is this?" "This," Cooper said, "is where humanity's real future begins. The galaxy thinks they're punishing us, but they've actually given us exactly what we need." "What do you mean?" Cooper stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the stars looked the same as always, but somehow everything felt different now. "Jake, did you ever wonder why humans are the only species that creates artificial intelligence? Why we're the only ones who expand so fast? Why we're the only ones who refuse to accept limits? I never really thought about it. It's because we're different. Not better or worse, just different. And that difference scares them." Cooper turned back to Jake. "But it's also our greatest strength." Jake stared at his old friend. "You've been planning for this, haven't you?" Cooper nodded. "For 20 years. Ever since I realized which way the political winds were blowing. We've been preparing for the day when the galaxy would decide they didn't want us anymore." "Preparing? How?" "You'll see," Cooper said. "But I promise you this, Jake. 50 years from now, when they finally realize what's coming for them, they're going to beg us to come back." Outside the window, the stars seemed to shine a little brighter. 3 years had passed since the Exile order. Captain Dan Miller sat in his command chair aboard the ghost ship Silent Runner. Around him, his crew worked quietly at their stations. No one spoke, unless they had to. Sound carried in space more than people thought, and this mission required absolute secrecy. The Silent Runner was invisible to all known sensors. Its hull was made from materials that absorbed radar and heat signatures. Even its engines were specially designed to leave no trace. On official records, this ship didn't exist. Neither did the 47 other ships in Dan's ghost fleet. "Captain," whispered Lieutenant Jenny Walsh from the navigation station. "We're approaching the target system." Dan nodded. "Drop us out of faster-than-light travel, silent running from here." The ship shuddered slightly as it returned to normal space. Through the main screen, Dan could see a dead star floating in the darkness. Around it orbited chunks of rock and ice. It looked like nothing special. That was the point. "Begin scanning for the construction site," Dan ordered. On Earth and the outer colonies, the galaxy was watching a very different show. General Linda Foster stood on a platform in front of thousands of reporters from dozens of species. Behind, her human workers were dismantling a major manufacturing facility on the colony world of New Boston. "As you can see," Linda said to the cameras, "humanity is following the Council's orders completely. We are shutting down all operations beyond the 100-light-year limit." The reporters filmed everything. They showed human families packing their belongings. They recorded ships leaving colonies and heading toward Earth. The galaxy watched it all and felt satisfied. The troublesome humans were finally being put in their place. What they didn't see was the truth. The families leaving were actors. The ships heading to Earth were empty except for skeleton crews. The real colonists had already been moved to secret locations months before. Dr. Amy Stone was in one of those secret locations right now. She stood in a laboratory built inside a hollowed-out asteroid. Around her, dozens of scientists worked, at computer terminals and research stations. The walls were lined with files and data storage units. "Amy," called her assistant Pete Johnson, "I've finished the biological analysis on the Zephyrian species." Amy walked over to Pete's station. On his screen was a detailed breakdown of Zephyrian biology, their strengths, their weaknesses, their genetic structure, everything. Excellent. Work, Amy said. Add it to the master file. Pete nodded and began transferring the data. The master file now contained detailed information on 412 alien species. Their biology, their technology, their military capabilities, their political systems. Everything humanity might need to know if things went wrong. Dr. Stone, called another researcher, Kate Brown. I've got the psychological profiles finished for the top 50 council members. Perfect. How many species have we completed full analyses on? Kate checked her computer. All 847 council member species, plus about 200 non-member species we've encountered. Amy smiled. The galaxy thought humans were simple and aggressive. They had no idea how carefully humans studied everything around them. While other species focused on big-picture politics, humans paid attention to details. Meanwhile, engineer Sam Wright was having the time of his life. He floated in zero gravity outside a massive construction site, watching robots build something. That shouldn't have been possible. The structure was larger than most space stations, but it was completely hidden from outside detection. How's the progress, Sam? Asked his assistant Mike Torres through the radio. We're ahead of schedule, Sam replied. The main framework will be done in 6 months. The manufacturing bays should be operational in 8. And the power core? Sam grinned inside his helmet. That's the beautiful part. We're using technology we learned from studying 50 different alien power systems, but we've combined them in ways no one else thought to try. This thing will produce more energy than anything the galaxy has ever seen. The construction site was one of 12 scattered throughout dead systems along the galaxy's edge. Each one would become a hidden base where humanity could build ships, conduct research, and prepare for whatever came next. Back on Earth, Admiral Cooper sat in his office, deep underground. The walls were covered with screens showing the progress of Operation Exodus. Green lights showed successful evacuations. Blue lights showed construction progress. Red lights showed potential problems. Most of the lights were green. Sir, said his aide, Colonel Ben Hayes, we've got a message from Captain Miller's fleet. What's the report? They've successfully established Shadow Base 7. The asteroid mining operation is producing raw materials ahead of projections. Cooper nodded. And the AI research? Dr. Ryan Clark says they'll have the first true artificial intelligence online within 2 years, maybe less. This was the part that would have terrified the Galactic Council most. Humanity wasn't just building ships and bases in secret. They were advancing their technology at an incredible rate. Without Council restrictions holding them back, human scientists were making breakthroughs that would have taken decades before. On the surface, Earth looked normal. People went to work, children went to school, and news reporters interviewed government officials about the exile process. But beneath the surface, a completely different reality was taking shape. Captain Jake Morrison walked through one of the hidden facilities built under the Pacific Ocean. The place was enormous, filled with assembly lines building ships that officially didn't exist. Workers moved with quiet efficiency, building humanity's secret future. It's incredible, Jake said to his guide, engineer Tony Park. How did we build all this without anyone noticing? Tony smiled. The same way we've always done things. We worked harder and smarter than anyone expected. While the galaxy was watching our left hand pack up and leave, our right hand was building the foundation for something bigger. They stopped at an observation window overlooking the main assembly floor. Below them, the skeleton of a massive ship was taking shape. It was bigger than anything in the official human fleet. What is that? Jake asked. That, Tony said, is humanity's real answer to exile. The galaxy thinks they've clipped our wings. They have no idea that we're growing new ones. As Jake watched the construction, he began to understand what Cooper had meant about being set free. The galaxy's exile wasn't a punishment. It was an opportunity. For the first time in decades, humanity could develop and expand without asking permission from anyone. The question wasn't whether they would survive the exile. The question was what they would become during it. Outside, the stars continued to shine. unaware that the balance of power in the galaxy was quietly shifting. The Great Deception was working perfectly, and humanity was preparing for a future that no one else could imagine. 30 years had passed since the Exile began. Colonel Ben Hayes floated through the corridors of the massive colony ship Freedom's Call. He had been born here, in the deep darkness beyond the galaxy's edge. To him, this ship wasn't just home. It was the entire world. The ship was huge. It stretched for miles in every direction. Inside its hull lived 2 million people. They had farms, factories, schools, and everything needed for a complete society. But what made Ben most proud were the people themselves. They were the first generation of humans born free from galactic rules. "Colonel Hayes to the bridge," came a voice over the intercom. "We have visitors." Ben pushed off the wall and glided toward the nearest transport tube. The ship's artificial gravity was turned off in most sections to save power. Everyone who lived here learned to move in zero gravity from childhood. On the bridge, Captain Mia Torres was studying a display screen. She was older than Ben, one of the original exiled generation. Her hair was starting to turn gray, but her eyes were as sharp as ever. "What do we have, Captain?" Ben asked. "3 ships approaching from the galactic rim," Mia said. "They're broadcasting human identification codes." "Which ones?" "Ships from the Wilson Colony expedition. They were supposed to be exploring dead systems near the outer spiral." Ben frowned. The Wilson expedition had been gone for 5 years. They were looking for resources and safe places to build new bases. Finding them here in the deep dark meant something important had happened. The ships docked with Freedom's Call an hour later. Captain Nick Walsh was the first person to step aboard. He looked tired and excited at the same time. His uniform was dirty and his face was covered with stubble. "Nick," Mia said, greeting her old friend. "What brings you so far from your patrol route?" "We found something," Nick said. "Something incredible." He led them to the briefing room where his crew was already setting up display equipment. The lights dimmed and a holographic image appeared in the center of the room. It showed a star system with several planets. "This is System X7742, Nick said. "About 50 light-years further into the deep dark. At first glance, it looks like any other dead system. Old star, cold planets, nothing special." The image zoomed in on the 3rd planet. Its surface was covered with strange geometric shapes. But when we got closer, we found these. The shapes became clearer. They were buildings, massive structures that stretched across continents. But they were old. Very old. "Ruins," Ben whispered. "Not just any ruins," Nick said. "These structures are at least 50,000 years old, maybe older, and they're not like anything we've seen before." The hologram showed detailed scans of the buildings. The architecture was beautiful but alien, curves and angles that seemed to follow mathematical principles no current species understood. "Who built them?" Mia asked. "We don't know, but we found something else." Nick pressed a button and the image changed. Deep underneath the surface, we detected active energy signatures. Ben felt his heart skip a beat. "Active? You mean something down there still works?" "More than works. We sent down exploration teams. What we found changed everything we thought we knew about this region of space." The hologram showed underground chambers filled with strange machines. They hummed with power and displayed information on screens made of light. The machines are still functioning after 50,000 years, and they contain databases. Massive amounts of information about this part of the galaxy. Captain Torres leaned forward. "What kind of information?" "Star charts going back millions of years. Records of species that existed long before any current galactic civilization. And warnings." "Warnings about what?" Nick's expression became very serious. "About something called the Devourers." The room fell silent. Ben had never heard that name before, but something about it made him feel cold. According to the records, the Devourers come from outside our galaxy. They arrive every few million years like a plague. They consume everything. Entire species, planets, star systems. Nothing stops them. "When was the last time they came?" Ben asked. 65 million years ago. The records show they destroyed hundreds of advanced civilizations before disappearing back into the void between galaxies. Mia stood up and began pacing. And you think they're coming back? The machines have been tracking movement in deep space for thousands of years. According to their calculations, the Devourers will reach the edge of our galaxy in about 50 years. Ben felt like the floor had dropped out from under him. 50 years, that's not very long. It gets worse, Nick continued. The precursor species, whoever built these ruins, they tried to warn the galaxy of their time, but the other species didn't believe them. They thought the precursors were making up stories to gain power. So the precursors were exiled too, Mia said quietly. Exactly, just like us. They were forced to retreat to the deep dark where they built these warning systems and tried to prepare defenses on their own. Did they succeed? Nick shook his head. The Devourers came before they were ready. But they left behind everything they learned, all their research, all their technology, everything they discovered about fighting this threat. Ben looked at the holographic displays showing alien technology beyond human understanding. And now it's ours. Not just ours, Nick said. We're not the only exiled species out here. The machines contain records of 12 other species that were cast out by various galactic governments over the past few thousand years. Most of them died off or gave up, but 3 are still active. 3 other species in the deep dark? Yes. And they've been preparing for the Devourer's return just like the precursors tried to do. Captain Torres stopped pacing. Nick, do you understand what you're telling us? I think so. The galaxy exiled us because they thought we were dangerous, but they actually sent us to the one place where we could find the tools and allies needed to save them all. Ben stared at the holographic ruins. Somewhere in those ancient structures was knowledge that could change the fate of every living thing in the galaxy. Technology that made current galactic civilization look primitive. There's something else, Nick said. The precursor databases contain detailed analysis of every major species in the current galaxy. Their weaknesses, their strengths, their technology. It's like they've been watching and studying galactic civilization for millions of years. Including humans. Especially humans. There are extensive files on human development, human psychology, human potential. According to the records, humans are the first species in galactic history to develop artificial intelligence, faster than light travel, and advanced manufacturing all within the same century. What does that mean? Nick smiled for the first time since arriving. It means the precursors think we might actually have a chance to stop the Devourers, but only if we can unite the exiled species and use their technology to build defenses the galaxy has never imagined. Ben looked around the room at his fellow humans. 30 years ago, they had been cast out and told they were too dangerous for civilized society. Now they were discovering that their exile had put them in exactly the right place to become the galaxy's saviors. The irony was almost too much to believe. So what do we do now? Ben asked. Now, Captain Torres said, we get to work. We have 50 years to save a galaxy that doesn't want to be saved. Outside the ship, the stars of the deep dark continued to shine, keeping their ancient secrets. But for the first time in millions of years, someone was finally listening to their warnings. Admiral Jake Morrison sat in his command chair aboard the flagship Deep Strike. His hair was completely gray now, and lines covered his face. 55 years had passed since the exile began. He was old, but his mind was as sharp as ever. Around him, the bridge crew worked quietly at their stations. The ship was invisible to all known sensors, floating at the edge of galactic space. They had been here for 3 days, waiting for the right moment to send their message. Admiral, said Communications Officer Lucy Davis, the quantum transmitter is ready. Jake nodded. Open a channel to Ambassador Hayes on the diplomatic station. The main screen flickered to life. Ambassador Lisa Hayes appeared, looking much older than Jake remembered. She was sitting in a small room that looked like it hadn't been updated in decades. Behind her, Jake could see the symbols of the old Galactic Diplomatic Service. Jake, Lisa said, smiling sadly. It's been too long. Hello. Lisa, I wish this was a social call. Lisa's expression became serious. Your message said it was urgent, something about a galactic threat. Jake leaned forward. Lisa, I need you to listen carefully. In approximately 15 years, something is going to reach the outer edge of galactic space. Something that will destroy every living thing in the galaxy if we don't stop it. Jake, what are you talking about? They're called the Devourers. They come from outside our galaxy every few million years. They consume entire star systems, leaving nothing but empty space behind. Lisa stared at him through the screen. That sounds like science fiction. I know how it sounds, but we have proof. Ancient records, sensor data, everything. The threat is real and it's coming whether we believe it or not. Jake pressed a button on his chair. The screen split, showing Lisa on one side and a star chart on the other. Red dots marked the path of destruction heading toward galactic space. These are the outer systems that have already gone dark, Jake said. 17 star systems in the past 2 years. No distress calls, no survivors, nothing, just silence. Lisa studied the chart. The Council says those systems were lost to natural disasters, solar flares, asteroid impacts, things like that. 17 systems, all at once. Lisa, you're too smart to believe that. She was quiet for a long moment. What do you want me to do? Convince the Council to meet with us. We have technology and knowledge that can help fight this threat. But we need to work together. Jake, you know that's impossible. The Exile order forbids any contact with human representatives. If I even suggest a meeting, they'll remove me from my position. Then what would it take? Lisa sighed. Proof. Something so undeniable that even the most stubborn council members can't ignore it. But even then what? The same people who voted to exile humanity are still in power. They'll never admit they were wrong. The transmission ended, leaving Jake staring at a blank screen. He had expected this response, but it still frustrated him. The galaxy was in danger, and politics were getting in the way of saving lives. 3 days later, Jake received Lisa's response. The Council had voted unanimously to reject any contact with human representatives. They declared that the Devourer threat was human propaganda designed to end their exile. Any species that provided aid to humans would face severe sanctions. But the message wasn't over. Lisa had included a secret addendum. Some species were starting to believe the warnings. The Altarian Assembly had quietly begun preparing their outer defenses. The Kepler Federation was moving their civilian populations away from rim worlds. Not everyone was ignoring the signs. Dr. Zoe Martinez read the same message from her hidden laboratory on an Altarian research station. She had been working undercover for 10 years, slowly introducing human defensive technologies to species willing to listen. Her Altarian colleague, Dr. Vex, looked worried as he studied the latest sensor reports. The energy signatures are getting stronger, Vex said. Whatever destroyed the outer rim systems is definitely moving this direction. How much time do we have? Zoe asked. At current speed, maybe 12 years before it reaches populated space. Zoe activated her secret communication system. Within minutes, she was connected to the human command center in the deep dark. This is Agent Martinez reporting, she said. The situation is getting worse. We need to accelerate the preparation. Timeline. Admiral Cooper's voice came through the speakers. He was very old now, but still in command of humanity's military forces. What's the status on defensive installations? The Altarians have completed 40% of the shield generators we designed. The Kepler Federation has upgraded their entire deep space sensor network, but it's not enough. What about the Council species? They're doing nothing. Most of them don't even believe the threat exists. There was a long pause before Cooper responded. Then we'll have to save them whether they want us to or not. Meanwhile, Security Chief Alex Reed was presenting his latest intelligence report to the Galactic Council. The chamber was nearly empty. Most council members had better things to do than listen to reports about imaginary human threats. The humans have been detected building massive installations beyond the galactic rim, Reed said. Our long-range sensors show construction on a scale never before attempted. The Zephyrian Chancellor, now ancient but still in power, waved a dismissive hand. More propaganda. The humans are trying to make us think they've become powerful enough to threaten us. Sir, the energy readings suggest weapons capable of destroying entire fleets. Impossible. No species could develop such technology in only 50 years of exile. Reed pulled up holographic displays showing the human installations. They were massive, clearly designed for war. Sir, what if they're not building these weapons to threaten us? What if they're building them to defend against something else? There is nothing else, Chief Reed. The humans are liars and warmongers. They always have been. But Reed wasn't convinced. He had spent decades studying human behavior, and nothing about their current actions fit the pattern of aggressive expansion. They were building defenses, not invasion fleets. They were preparing for war, but not against the galaxy. They were preparing to fight something coming from outside. That night, Reed made a decision that would change his life forever. He composed a secret message and sent it through encrypted channels to the human deep dark colonies. The message was simple. Some of us believe you. What do you need? The response came back within hours. Start evacuating the rim worlds. All of them. Now. Reed stared at the message for a long time. If he followed this advice and was wrong, his career would be over. If he ignored it and was wrong, billions of people would die. He made his choice. Over the next 6 months, Reed used his security clearance to quietly spread warnings throughout the outer colonies. He never mentioned humans or devourers. He simply suggested that increased pirate activity made the rim worlds unsafe. Some governors listened. They began moving civilian populations to safer systems. Others ignored the warnings, trusting that the council knew best. As the evacuations proceeded, the first Devourer scouts finally reached the galaxy's edge. They were small, fast ships that moved through space like sharks through water. Human. Sensors detected them immediately. The galaxy's sensors detected nothing at all. Jake Morrison sat in his command chair, watching the enemy scouts probe galactic defenses. In 15 years, maybe less, the main Devourer force would arrive. When that happened, the galaxy would learn that their greatest mistake wasn't exiling humanity. Their greatest mistake was refusing to listen when humanity tried to save them. The Devourers came like a wave of darkness. They swept through the outer rim systems, consuming everything in their path. Entire star systems simply vanished, leaving empty space where billions of lives had existed just days before. Fleet Admiral Dan Miller stood on the bridge of the human super dreadnought Vengeance. Through the massive viewing screen, he could see the galactic fleet fighting desperately against the invaders. The galaxy's ships were fast and well-armed, but they might as well have been throwing rocks at a hurricane. "Sir," called Captain Sarah Mitchell from her nearby command ship, "the Zephyrian Fourth Fleet has been completely destroyed. That's 6 galactic fleets lost in the past week." Dan watched as another group of galaxy ships exploded under Devourer fire. The alien invaders moved through space like living shadows, their weapons tearing through galactic shields as if they didn't exist. "Any word from the Council?" Dan asked. "They sent another surrender offer to the Devourers 2 hours ago," his communications officer reported. No response. Dan almost smiled. The same council that had exiled humanity for being too aggressive was now trying to negotiate with creatures that had already consumed 50 billion lives. "Sir," came a new voice over the radio, "this is Chancellor Crix of the Zephyrian government. Please respond." Dan recognized the voice. It was the son of the old Chancellor who had exiled humanity 60 years ago. The father had died 5 years earlier, still believing humans were the galaxy's greatest threat. "This is Admiral Miller. What do you want, Chancellor?" "Admiral, we need your help. Our fleets cannot stop these creatures. Our worlds are dying." "Interesting. 60 years ago, your father told us we were too dangerous to exist in civilized space. Admiral, please. I know what my father did was wrong, but millions of innocent people are dying." Dan looked around his bridge at his human crew. They were waiting for his decision. Many of them had been born in exile, raised on stories of how the galaxy had abandoned them. "What exactly are you asking for, Chancellor? We surrender our authority to you." Complete command of all galactic military forces. Full access to our technology and resources. Whatever you want. And in return, save us. Dan closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, his expression was grim but determined. All galactic fleets will retreat to defensive positions around core worlds. We'll take it from here. The transmission ended. Dan turned to his crew. Signal the fleet. It's time to show the galaxy what exiled humans can do. The human fleet that emerged from the deep dark was beyond anything the galaxy had ever imagined. Ships the size of small moons, armed with weapons that bent the laws of physics. Their hulls were made from precursor materials that could repair themselves. Their shields could absorb the energy of exploding stars. Captain Sarah Mitchell led the first attack. Her squadron of 12 ships faced off against a devourer swarm that had just finished consuming the Altair system. The enemy force numbered in the thousands. All ships engage, Sarah ordered. The human ships moved with impossible precision. Their artificial intelligence systems, developed in secret during the Exile years, coordinated attacks faster than any biological mind could follow. Each ship fought as part of a single organism. Sarah's ship fired its main weapon. The beam of energy that emerged was powered by a controlled black hole, technology the current galaxy thought was impossible. It cut through the devourer swarm like a sword through paper. Enemy force destroyed, reported her tactical officer. No human casualties. The same scene played out across dozens of star systems. Human ships appeared wherever the devourers struck, and each time the result was the same. Total victory for humanity. Engineer Paul Kelly coordinated the evacuation of endangered worlds. His massive rescue ships could transport entire cities in a single trip. The technology came from studying the precursor ruins, combined with 60 years of unrestricted human innovation. Kepler colony evacuation complete, he reported to Admiral Miller. All 200 million civilians safely relocated to protected systems. Excellent work, Paul. What's next? The Devourers are massing for an attack on the galactic core. Looks like they're planning something big. Admiral Miller studied the tactical displays. The enemy was gathering its full strength for one final assault. Every Devourer ship in the galaxy was converging on the Council homeworlds. Then that's where we end this, Miller said. The Battle of Galactic Center lasted 3 days. The Devourers threw everything they had at the core worlds, trying to break through human defensive lines. Their numbers were massive, but human technology was beyond their understanding. Commander Julie Adams led the shield defense of Earth's old diplomatic station. The same station where humanity had been exiled 60 years earlier was now the command center for the galaxy's salvation. Enemy breakthrough in Sector 7, her tactical officer called out. Redirect power from Sectors 2 and 5, Julie ordered. We will not let them through. The human shields held. Behind them, galactic civilians watched in amazement as their former exiles fought to save them. On the third day, Admiral Miller led the assault on the Devourer command ship. It was a massive creature, part machine and part living organism, larger than most planets. All ships target the core, Miller ordered. We end this now. The human fleet fired as one. The weapon they used had been built from precursor designs, powered by technologies the galaxy had forbidden them to develop. It didn't just destroy the Devourer command ship, it erased it from existence, along with every other Devourer in the galaxy. The silence that followed was deafening. For the first time in months, the galaxy was at peace. Chancellor Crick stood in the rebuilt council chambers, facing the same podium where his father had exiled humanity. Now he was welcoming them, back as heroes and equals. The Galactic Council hereby revokes the exile of Earth and all human colonies, he announced. Furthermore, we formally recognize humanity as the guardians of galactic space. Admiral Miller, now old and tired, stood where Jake Morrison had stood 60 years earlier. But this time the chamber was filled with cheers instead of condemnation. Galaxy owes humanity a debt that can never be repaid, the Chancellor continued. You saved us all. Miller looked around the chamber at the hundreds of alien faces. Many of them were species whose ancestors had voted to exile his people. We didn't do it for gratitude, Miller said quietly. We did it because it was right. Later, on the observation deck of his flagship, Miller stood with his old friend Jake Morrison. Jake was ancient now, barely able to walk, but he had insisted on seeing the end of the war. "So what happens now?" Jake asked. "Now we rebuild," Miller said. "The galaxy and humanity working together, the way it should have been from the beginning." "And the exile?" Miller smiled. "History will remember it as the best thing that ever happened to us. Being cast out made us stronger. It put us in the right place to find the tools we needed to save everyone." Through the viewport, they could see human and alien ships working together to repair damaged worlds. The future looked brighter than either of them had dared to hope. The galaxy had voted to exile Earth, and humans hadn't waited to be told twice. They had left, grown stronger, and returned as saviors. Sometimes the best revenge was being right all along.